A lot of countries overseas have beautiful high mountains that they can really use for paragliding. You can get such incredible height so easily. In Australia, that's one thing that holds back paragliding. So with debagging, we can get to altitude and start from there.
Finding an aircraft that'll get you up there that, you know, is relatively cheap and accessible and also flies at the right speed. If you go through the air too fast or quite quickly, it adds a complication to the opening. There's a shock, and our gliders aren't designed to have a fast opening.
The first look at debagging for me was, wow, that looks exciting and very dangerous.
Our safety analysis was deal with the worst possible situation first, and after we had that covered and we were comfortable with that, then we could move through it. Dealing with the canopy coming out of the bag and stabilising the canopy, even though it's a skill that we need to practice, and we can practice that on the ground to a large extent, we move away from the other dangers that are involved with launching from hills.
It actually seems less dangerous than a lot of the launch techniques we use already, like towing, launching from cliff tops, launching out of tight slots in the trees. You've got obstacles nearby, you've got potential dangers. When you've got altitude, altitude's your friend. First of all, we seeked out experienced pilots that have been doing debagging, that have been doing a lot of acrobatic stuff overseas. Mendo from Macedonia, he was our teacher, and he showed us in detail. We video recorded the whole thing so we could go back and look at every stage and make sure we had it correctly. Once it was packed, we then simulated openings in the wind as best we could, and to make sure the lines weren't tangled and also that the canopy opened correctly.
Mendo as well has done, you know, many jumps, more than 20 jumps, and he's jumped from many different types of aircraft. We rehearsed a few of the situations that we did trial with Mendo. One of the procedures we did was I took Mendo up in the tandem paramotor and I dropped him out of the motor. So we rehearsed that down to the, you know, to the finite point of actually winching ourselves up a tree, and him going through the whole thing again and again and again, and so we both knew exactly what to do. I mean, it got down to the point where we could do it with our eyes closed. So come the day, it was just like, oh, we're just doing it again, but now we're going to do it at altitude.
We also talked with Andy Hediger, who invented debagging 15 years ago in the early 90s.
We had the pleasure of his company while we were working through this.
They told us to practice and rehearse. Hang up, get all in your equipment, get familiar with the gear, familiar with how the pins work, familiar with how to pull the pins, and simulate that in practice. So when you're up in the air, there's no problem, you've done it before.
Later.
I think piecing together information all over the place, we weren't able to just grab the operations manual from the UK or the operations manual from Switzerland, because no one's actually done this. We were working with other professionals, so we might be doing one thing new, but we had a whole series of professionals that we were working with, and we felt confident and comfortable there, because it's always good to try one new thing and have everything else that you know. The only new thing was the actual opening. Packing can be done again and again and again, and visualising how the canopy opens up helps you actually understand how to put it back in the bag. Between the time that the sessions we did with Mendo and the time that we ended up doing our own debag out of the hot air balloon, I think it helped Cedar actually come up with a whole new, better way to repack the paraglider in the bag.
What I did was pull the whole glider up in the air, so the glider's hanging down and all the lines are perfectly tensioned naturally from the paraglider's weight, and you can look up and see that there is no tangles. Every line is perfect, and starting from there was to concertina the paraglider and put it in the bag. It's basically exactly the same as Mendo's technique, only instead of being on the ground, it's vertical, and instead of having to pull the tension yourself, you let gravity do that by pulling the wing down.
Yeah, I mean, I was particularly impressed with it, so much so that I decided to go first. And
thanks for testing it.
That's all right. So I had 3,000 feet to deal with the canopy, and then failing that I had 2 reserves which were very, very close to me, so the safety was definitely number one there. We'd both done quite a bit of work on the ground and in the air on finding the stall point of our gliders, because we knew that in an emergency situation we would need to stall our gliders. I did several stalls before on the lead up to the D-bag. That's pretty much one of the most aggressive manoeuvres in paragliding, as far as, you know, getting shocked. It's a perfect manoeuvre to reset the glider if there's a problem. Things that can happen is when a part of the glider gets stuck between the lines. We call that a cravat, and that's probably the worst thing that we were expecting, and a full stall would have taken that out. So we'd already mastered the reset button. We did something, we talked about it, we slept on it, we woke up with questions. Oh, what about this? One of the fears I had was actually where the strings go and where your hands go when you release the safeties, and that was quite an easy fear to get over, because I just practiced that in my shed. Put a mattress down and we went through that again and again, and just replaying the actual D-bag that I did from the hot air balloon, it was absolutely no effort at all, and it happened, you know, just like clockwork.
Actually getting aloft is probably the most dangerous thing. There's one way or another you've got to get up to altitude, and whether it be ballooning, whether it be from a tandem paramotor, a slow flying aircraft, then the actual D-bag bit is a bit where you pull the pin and you're paragliding again, which is what we know how to do already.